What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Colton Posey Fishing. Today we're going to talk about a couple different things. One of the reasons is I don't want to give out too many details. A lot of my competitors watch my videos, so I don't really want them to know what I know going into the Smith Lake tournament and stuff. So today we're going to talk about the spawn, and we're going to talk about just tournament prep, the whole 9 yards. How to keep your boat organized, and just motivations and stuff like that. But guys, stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. So as you can see, I'm finally wearing shorts. Feels great outside. We've been stuck in the mid 70s, lower 70s, low 60s, high 50s at night. So the water is really heating up. Everything's going very well. So what I want to talk about to begin with is the spawn. It's coming up. It's going to be anytime very soon. So here's some baits and tactics and stuff that you can use during the spawn to help you target those fish that are on beds or close to beds. So the first one I'm going to start out with is an old school Zoom trick worm. And I like throwing pinks and whites, okay? I can just see it very well. I can see if a fish comes up to it, chases it or whatever. You just want to make sure you got really good sunglasses, some Cosas, Oakleys, something like that, something very good, polarized, because this time of year they're definitely worth the money because they'll make you a lot of money on the tournament trail. So the Zoom trick worms, and basically how I rig these up, if I'm going after those pre-spawn fish that's already in the back of the creeks that they're not necessarily spawning, they're close by where they're going to spawn, I will just Texas rig this, no weight, nothing, just like you do a fluke or anything like that, and just work it close to the top of the water. Another way I'll do it, I'll actually Ned rig it. So take a Ned rig head, and you can also use a shaky head. Those are real good ways to target those fish once they're on beds. And one of the reasons I'm using the Ned rig heads and stuff, I don't want to cause that much disturbance in the pocket. I want to be as quiet or stealthy as I can. I got the trouble motor on like the first phase. You can turn it on. I'm moving real slow and methodically, trying not to cast a shadow or anything like that over the bed. I'm just trying to stay far away. This way you can keep that lure kind of close to the water when you're casting it. Get that bait down there silently, and then move it onto the bed till you find the sweet spot. And you can usually whack them pretty good on, the shaky head and the Ned rig. Now, that's the worm side of things. Now, another one, as I get further on in the spawn, the water starts really heating up and stuff, and stays very warm. I'm going to use a creature type bait. And one of the first tournaments that I ever won, the first open tournament that I ever won, was off of a bait that was similar to this. I don't really use Googan stuff at all, but Yum used to make a bait similar to this. This is the Googan Bandito Bug. What it's supposed to represent is like a crawfish and stuff. Honestly, the way these things move, I don't know what it represents. It just looks goofy going through the water, but for some reason the fish like it. I think it's just something different that not a lot of people throw, and they just work. It's pretty much, if you're familiar with the Mighty Bug, it's pretty much the same action. During the pre-spawn and the spawn period, you can really whack fish on these, especially even in the post-spawn, like when those fish start moving up when you start seeing that grass on the side of lakes and stuff, you can just Texas rig this joker. I mean, that's all you gotta do is just Texas rig it, and then just slow roll it on top of the water. Keep that rod tip high, and then just slow roll it. I mean, you can ask a lot of people that fish with me, the old Mighty Bugs and stuff. I used to smoke them everywhere I went on these. And the Googan bait's kind of similar. If the water's clear, I'm using natural colors, and if the water's kind of murky and stuff, I'm using dark colors. One really good color that I like is the Bama Bug, because it's green pumpkin on one side and June bug on the other. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. So you get that dark color, and also you get that natural color at the same time. So it works whether it's clear or muddy, whatever. So let's move on to the next one. this is one of my favorite baits, especially when I get in real rocky areas. This is a Young Money Crawl, and I don't have any left. I done used them all, but the white color of these, it's just a let's see here, let me open her up. It's got the classic tail, but it's straight like a worm. It's kind of weird the way these swim. See how the crawl has got that angle to it? When it's moving through the water, that crawl's twisting like this, so it's not fluttering, it's both of them's twisting, so it gives a unique action to the bait. So you can swim this, you can fish it on bottom or whatever. This is a great spawn bait, where you can drop it down there on the bed and, you know, sit there and work them till the fish bites. It's got a, you know, a good bit of action and stuff like that to it. It mimics crawfish. It mimics predators that those bass are going to try to keep off their bed. So one of the ways that I rig it, especially if I'm dealing with a very large female, is on a shaky head. But here's the difference, okay? I'm using the screw lock this time, but see that head, how it's flat? That's what I want. I want this thing sitting like this with the crawls pointed up. So when it's sitting there just like this on bottom with the crawls pointed up, it makes it look like a crawfish in a defensive position. So a bass's natural instinct is to target that predator. So that works really well. You can also throw it on a Ned rig. There's nothing wrong with that. But typically, if I throw it on a Ned rig, I'm usually swimming the bait. So that's where those winding crawl actions I was talking about kind of comes into play. Now, if you're really focused on getting a female bass, like let's say you've casted in there with several different baits and you can't really tell what she's doing, or you can't really see her that well, or she's coming up to your bait and hitting it, but you can't tell exactly how she's hitting it. There's just a whole bunch of situations that you can get into in the spawn that that gets very frustrating. So your whites and your pinks and stuff like that is perfect. That's the reason this is one of the top baits that I use period during the spawn, especially if I'm having a hard time seeing my bait and seeing the bass come over there and either identify the bait that I'm using, or, you know, just taking in what I'm using. If I can't see really good, this is definitely a go-to. It's a Strike King Rage Tail Grub. It's the 4-inch Menace. Solid white. And I mean, you can see the bait very well. And the way that I rigged that one up, I'm either going with the stand-up shaky head, or either I'm going with the Ned rig. So one of the two, which I usually don't go with this small of a Ned rig. I'm usually going with a 2 or 3/0 hook. And it's just one of those lures that you can see very well, especially when it's windy and you're having a hard time targeting that bed, targeting that fish. I can see exactly where my lure is, because if I know where my lure's at, then I know where the bed is, if that makes any sense. If y'all do a lot of bed fishing, you know what I'm talking about. When the wind and stuff starts blowing, it makes it complicated to figure out exactly where your stuff is if, you know, you can't see it. So the last one I was wanting to talk about, I forgot all about this thing, but this is a great one to use on these beds. And you can use pretty much anything you want to on this one. The biggest key is it's a living rubber jig. So this is the Buckeye Lures stand-up jig head. I really like this jig during the spawn because it stands straight up, of course, but you can do a real subtle presentation with it. One of the things I like to do, I just like taking a Yum Dinger and cutting it in half, or you can take the Ned Dinger and cut it in half and put it on there, or you can put a full-blown Dinger because it's got the screw lock in there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a screw lock right there in the middle of that rubber. So, I mean, there's a multitude of things you can do with this. The money crawls work very well on this. I try to stay to the smaller stuff where it'll stand up straight, because you start getting that heavy stuff and the crawls start falling over, it's going to pull the jig over, and you don't want that happening. So you can use the jigs like that. They work great. And another way, I remember I was going to talk to y'all a little bit about tournament prep. So during the spawn and stuff, one of the ways that I prep for a tournament without, catching that fish and bothering that fish, you can buy these. Let's see here, I just picked these up at a tackle store. They all got different names, but it's basically just it's a twist lock, like you'd put on your hook. It's just like that. It's just a twist lock. And basically what I do with these things, I just tie it onto my line. I screw my bait on there, and you just fish it like you normally would. There's just no hook on there, so you're not going to be able to hook them fish. You can take you like a 1/4 ounce Woo tungsten weight, put on top of it, just work it like you're Texas rigging something. That's one great way to target those fish before a tournament, so you doesn't, pressure them and stuff like that. You make a couple casts, you get bit, reel that thing in, move a little bit further down, make another cast with that, get bit, reel it up, go to another area. So guys, that's part of the spawning stuff. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about tournament tactics and how to kind of help you keep prepared for what's going on during the tournament and stuff like that. So stay tuned. Okay, guys. So one of the biggest things you can do when you're tournament fishing is you want to stay organized. Period. You want to stay organized. I want to know where everything's at every moment. That way, if I ever needed to just grab something, I can grab it and go. So, like, I'm going to show you an example. So this right here is my terminal tackle box. It's just the Flambeau Zero Rust. Love these boxes. I've got some of my flat-sided shaky heads right here. I've got some of my screw lock shaky heads that are flat-headed, and I've got some of my round heads that doesn't have the screw locks. Some of them does, but a different ounce right here. So then I got my pegs, and if you look up under here, I got my rattles and all that stuff. And then I've got my round bend hooks. I've got my Superline EWG and deep throat hooks by Gamakatsu. I got my Ned heads. I got them right there. My, this is basically for finesse gear, Nico rigging and stuff like that. I kind of got them put together. So there's a couple different sizes, but they're all pretty much the same hooks. And then these right here is what I was talking about a couple weeks ago. These are those Woo tungsten shaky heads. I actually cut the screw locks off of them and use them to rig my wacky rigs weighted. So right here I've got my beads and stuff. This is these little things right here. They're just stinger hooks. Then I've got a couple of my smaller weights right here, and then I've got all my 1/4 ounce weights right here. Then I've got my size 6 EWG Gamakatsu hooks, and then I've got my size 4. I really don't ever go over a size 4, so that's the reason I don't have too many of them. Then I've got a few odd things right here, especially my big weights. And then those screw locks I was telling you about, and then some extra odd size weights, maybe a little bigger. So basically that's what I'm saying, is like you want to keep all your stuff where you know exactly where it is. I want to be able to know at all times. Like right here, I've got, my Flambeau boxes stacked up. I know that's my jigs, and then up under it's my square bills and rattle traps. And then I've got my Rapala DT series crankbaits, and then just several different things. And I keep my grubs up front. My like right here, I've got my crawl stuff. I'm gonna put my crawl stuff in front of that. Then I'm gonna put my trailers in front of that. This is a bag of just little finesse stuff like Ned rig worms, and then I keep my finesse worms right here. My whole big pack of dingers, my ribbon tail worms. I mean, you just want to kind of keep everything organized and exactly where you know where it's at. That way you're not scrambling over the boat, because if you're a tournament fisherman, I mean, every second counts. I mean, there's been a lot of times where you're out there fishing all day and it's a grind, and then all of a sudden, bam, you run into them. You need this stuff right then. That way I can just reach down there and grab it. So, just always keep a good attitude. There's a lot of people that they're just kind of, the whole time they're griping about something or, something like that. Stay away from them people. There's no need in negativity, because obviously the fish are in the water. So all you got to do with all these fancy electronics and stuff we got now, all you got to do is find them and put something in front of them that they want. I mean, it sounds simple. It's not sometimes, but keeping that positive attitude, that's going to keep you on your game all the time. You're not going to be doubting yourself and doubt what you're doing, because if you're already doubting yourself, you're not going to catch anything. Period. I don't care if you're out there fun fishing or tournament fishing or whatever. So guys, just keep a positive attitude no matter what it is. Keep your stuff organized. Make sure everything's working before the tournament. Had that happen last tournament. Just little stuff like that. And maybe the baits and stuff that I showed you will help you during the spawn, and then next week we'll get into some more detailed stuff since the tournament will be over with. And maybe this little tournament little recap thing, because I've been getting a lot of questions from you guys about how to prepare for a tournament and stuff like that. Use your Google Earth to look points in the water, and there's Navionics web apps. There's the Humminbird Lake Smart app. I mean, there's tons of things you can do while you're just sitting in the house or at work on lunch or whatever, just doing nothing, that you could be all over that stuff. You could be way ahead of the ball game before you ever get there. So, don't forget about all that stuff. Use technology to your advantage. Get on Google and type in all kinds of stuff you can about that lake. Find out what 90% of people's using that time of year. So if you're wanting to just go out there and have a good time, maybe you can throw that and catch a good bit of fish and have fun. But if you're tournament prepping, what I typically like to do, I want to see what 90% of the field's throwing, and I want to do what 10% of the field's doing. That way, hopefully, I can find something different, catch a lot more fish, or target those bigger bites. So it doesn't always work like that, don't get me wrong. I mean, you do that all the time. It rarely happens, but once you get confidence building a certain bait on a certain lake, stick to that. I mean, you're going to run into big ones. I mean, it's just going to happen. It's not a question of how, it's a question of when. So I've seen it before 100 times. I'll be fishing someplace and I'm like, man, I can't get them to bite nothing. I'll leave, somebody will come in right behind me and catch fish. And I've done it to a lot of people too. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with what you're throwing or anything like that, how your boat's positioned, stuff like that. It's all confidence. If I'm fishing that lure, if there's 12 fish on that point, I want to catch all 12 fish before I leave. And then, some people, they just want to go in and catch, as many as they can, but they don't want to put the time and effort into focusing on what they're doing the whole time. Literally, when I cast out there and I make that cast the whole retrieve, I mean, I'm not getting it close to the boat and then reeling it up, making another cast. I'm working that bait completely all the way back to the boat till there's no more line to work, because I'm so confident that from any point during that cast or that retrieve that I'm going to get bit. So guys, stay confident, keep a positive attitude, keep all your stuff organized. Those are a few baits that you can use during the spawn to hopefully catch you some more fish, and just target the areas, the hard bottom areas, stuff out of north winds, warmer pockets, stuff like that. You'll find those fish. Get you a good pair of sunglasses, cruise over them with a trolling motor, mark them, leave, come back a couple hours later and start hammering down on them. So guys, I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. We'll see y'all next Sunday.